Have you heard of blackout poetry? It's kind of this niche type of poetry where you take a piece that's already been written, select words and phrases to create a poem, and black out the rest with a marker. This method has been around since the 18th century, but it was recently popularized by Austin Kleon, the guy who wrote How to Steal Like an Artist, which is still on my to-read list. It honestly kind of feels like a reverse ad-lib. There are tons of different ways to create blackout poetry. Austin mostly worked with daily newspapers, but you can use any written material. I like to use an old sailing novel from the 18th century that I found at a thrift store. The important thing is taking 10 minutes or more or less to create something. This process has been incredibly beneficial to me as an artist and photographer. It helps me to be more creative, keep ideas flowing, and learn to work within structured parameters and constraints. So let's get started. First, you'll want to gather your materials. I try to create a poetry piece every day, so I always keep these close at hand. You'll need a written piece, a pencil, either with an eraser or a separate eraser, a pen to black out the unused words, and any other pens and art supplies if you want to create a drawing or a doodle around your piece. Traditionally, Sharpies are used to black out, but I prefer acid-free markers that don't bleed through the paper since I'm using both sides. I usually begin by reading through the entire page that I'm going to be working on that day. Sometimes I circle words and phrases that jump out at me that seem interesting, and other times I just focus on reading the full page. Once I've read it, I go back and begin circling interesting pieces. At this point, I don't worry about how they'll all fit together. I just focus on gathering all of the materials. Kind of like brainstorming for a paper. Get all the ideas down first and then mold it into something. Once I have all my words and phrases selected, I begin looking for ways to connect them together and create something that's coherent and flows. This is where my eraser comes in handy. I'll reread each piece over and over to make sure any words that I add make sense and blend with the rest of the words. Sometimes I'll completely cut phrases that I really loved in the beginning because they no longer make sense with the whole. Depending on the page and how clear my mental state is that day, sometimes I can finish a page within 10 minutes, or sometimes it takes 30 minutes or multiple days to figure out how to work it into something that I like. Once I'm confident that I like all the circled words on the page, I outline them in pen. Then I can start the true blackout process of covering up all the words that don't aid in my news story work from the page. My favorite black marker recently ran out of ink, so I'm using a dark green one today. It doesn't conceal the words as much, but it conceals them enough. There's something unique and interesting about creating blackout poetry pieces. The words that I'm working with were not my own. They were originally dreamed up, drafted, and worked into a piece describing an 18th century sailing experience, and then here I am, centuries later, reworking the words into new meanings. Funnily enough, the words that this man put onto paper centuries ago make for really fun, kind of spooky poetry. I doubt he ever imagined that a copy of his book would be used for this purpose. Now that all the excess words are sufficiently blacked out, the piece is complete. I like to add the date that I completed the piece in pencil in the bottom corner. It kind of acts as a journal or poetry catalog. I hope this inspires you to give this creative technique a try and incorporate it into your own creative practices, whether you're a part-time or full-time artist or someone who likes to doodle in between work meetings. There are also tons of inspirational photos on Pinterest and other internet sources from people who create blackout poetry frequently and incorporate mixed media techniques into their practice. I highly recommend checking out what other creators have made and use all of it as inspiration to create your own pieces. Thanks for watching.